Hi, Alan Schimmel, DevOps.com here at DevOps Enterprise Summit 2016 London. And I'm here with Rob England, the IT skeptic.
That's me. Hello,
And
everyone.
Rob comes with us just from around the corner in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Rob, welcome. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. All the way from the last rock on the planet.
Yes. Well, second to last. But Rob, a couple things we wanted to talk about. One was a recent white paper that you've done on behalf of
X Matters.
Yes. And why don't you kind of give our audience a kind of overview of the paper?
Well, it's based on an idea that came to me a while ago when I heard about a few things. One is a very obscure philosophical thing called the Cynefin framework, Cynefin, which is a situational analysis framework that you can use for understanding any situation you're in, and it's a four-piece framework. And then I was also talking to Charlie Betts, B-E-T-Z, who's B-E-T-Z, sorry, who's a real architectural thinker, and Charlie was talking about this thing called case management, like as in legal cases, medical cases, police cases. So it's a framework for dealing with situations where we don't have a predefined way of coping with them. So it's a case, we have to work it out, like a dead body or something, you know. And as I understood that there's actually a discipline called case management where we think about this stuff, that therefore that was something we didn't talk about enough in IT, and we talk very much about standardized stuff, like ITIL tries to treat the whole world as if it could be standardized, you know,
if only.
the predefined models and da-da-da-da. And yeah, if only, right? So what happens is that people in support or you know, in resolver groups get beat up because they've got these incidents or problems or changes or requests that run on and on for months. And it's what's wrong with you people, because we have this standardized expectation that we'll always be able to resolve these things. So this light bulb went on. I went, wait. Only some of the world is standard, and the rest of the world can be described as case management. And if we put those two models together, then suddenly we've got this yin and yang complete model for how you deal with the world, right?
Absolutely.
Right?
Okay.
So I was like, wow. And so I actually went off and wrote a book about it. I got so excited, which was immediately an overnight non-event. As these books
Did it make the bestseller list?
No, it didn't romp up the charts. But so yeah, recently I did a paper for X Matters sort of explaining these ideas in a more DevOps context about, you know, in our DevOps world, we're constantly trying to standardize, because if you think about it, until we get really good AI, perhaps, at the moment, the only things you can automate is that which you've already standardized, right? You can only automate something if it's defined and repeatable, right? So case stuff, you can't automate it. It's still people. And what we're trying to do is constantly normalize the world, standardize the world, come to understand it, get a model, and then ultimately automate that. And so that gives a different context for DevOps people to think about this whole automation side of the world is again, sometimes in DevOps, there's this kind of underlying assumption that you can automate everything. You know, and so standard plus case is saying, whoa, step back. You can only automate some of the world, and you're always going to have this human capability for analysis of more complex situations until one day we have robotic systems engineers who can do that.
Day may not be too far away from what we've seen. But you bring up an excellent point, and that is the whole idea behind automation was to automate the mundane. The rote task to free us up to do higher value. You know, we see this in QA, for instance, in security. You know, to free up to do the higher value kind of work that is that only a human, right now anyway, can do. But instead, it's kind of turned into a Frankenstein monster where we just want to automate everything. You know, like giant Pac-Man, automation Pac-Man that just want to automate. Automation for automation's sake alone, if you will.
And we've got to be very careful of the business case for automation, because, I mean, there are situations where we get so enthused about it that there's actually not the ROI on that investment in the automation.
No.
It doesn't happen often enough. it doesn't improve the process enough.
I'll give you a perfect example. It's not automation per se, but the self-service checkouts that we see at many of the retail stores now. I am convinced that it's cheaper to hire a cashier and go through that way, because the self-service, every 3 people needs assistance.
Yeah, you got to wonder.
And that assistance takes more time than just going on the line and getting it done.
Yeah.
And to me, that's sort of
that's
the model.
A good example of where you could potentially over-engineer the stuff. And who loves over-engineering more than IT people, right? Yeah, so you've got to be really careful.
You think so?
Yeah. But the other good point you raised there is that, some people fear automation threatening their jobs, but in IT, I always say it's like firemen fearing sprinkler systems are going to put them out of work.
Right.
It's just doing the basic stuff.
Doing it right, and they're not replacing firemen.
Yeah, so there's all this work that we probably should be doing now, higher value work, but we get dragged into the mundane. The urgent trumps the important.
Right.
And so if you automate it, all you're doing is getting rid of the rubbish work to a machine.
In a perfect world, that's what it should be. And let me just repeat what you just said there. The urgent trumps the important. And I think people need to be cognizant of, is that what they're doing in their jobs, or are they focusing on what's important? And Rob, let me bring that around then to the DevOps Enterprise Summit, which we're here today. And I think that's maybe one of the kinds of themes that we're seeing here, is how people are using DevOps and how this whole DevOps sort of concept is accelerating.
Boy, is
to allow us to do more important work, right? And hopefully less urgent.
And just exactly, and do more important work and do the mundane stuff so much faster.
Yes.
Damon and John talked about breaking the iron triangle of faster, better, cheaper.
Yes.
And one thing I always talk to my clients, I picked up reasonably recently, when you look at the metrics of DevOps, they're always focused on faster and better, quality and throughput, and the cheaper just is allowed to follow. Because if you focus on cheaper, what you do is lay off people, and
it becomes cheap.
But if you focus on faster and better, cheaper will follow, because if you're doing more work with the same number of people, and if you're doing less rework, if your quality's up, then it's going to get cheaper. It's just
so to me, that is sort of the magic formula of DevOps, and it's so counterintuitive. Not only is it faster, better quality, and cheaper, it's more secure, right?
Which more robust.
It sounds like cold fusion. You know what I mean? And we all know how that ends.
That's a really good point. So, I mean, in the early days, my little blog, the IT Skeptic, I was like chucking rocks. You guys are insane. You can't seriously suggest that you can increase volatility without increasing risk, right? I couldn't see it. And so that is still the intuitive reaction.
Right, no, that is intuitive.
As you guys, that sounds like confusion.
Can't be. Right, it doesn't work. But yet, up here we're hearing case study after study after company consistently.
And the thing I love about this conference is, the other thing I hear, of course, is, well, that's fine for unicorns, but we wouldn't work around here, And this whole conference is that's the whole point of this conference, is to say it works for the horses. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Rob, we have you here from New Zealand. What's next for you? What do you got coming out?
What am I working on? Well, I'm deep in a really interesting consulting exercise at the moment for a big ministry in New Zealand, which is teaching me a lot. Hopefully I'm teaching them at the same time, but I'm learning.
Those are the best ones.
That's what consulting's about. You learn as much as the client does. And looking forward, I'm thinking about a few things. I'm always focused on that intersection between ITSM and DevOps, and trying to better articulate the overlap and how they cohabit. So that's going to be an area of interest for me going forward. And I did a book on basic service management a few years ago, where I tried to squeeze it all into 50 pages, which is
a task,
very hard. So I'm toying with the idea of doing the same thing with DevOps, trying to come out with a tiny, tiny little paperback that
I've
still
got a
tries
great
to.
site that might help you distribute that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, I could suggest something.
Yeah, I wonder.
Well, we'll be on the lookout for that. Please keep us
It'll
posted.
probably be next year before it's done, but
It's okay. Well, hopefully we're here.
that'll be fun.
Absolutely. Rob England, IT Skeptic, thank you for joining us here at DevOps Enterprise Summit London 2016. This is Alan Schemmel for DevOps.com.